Slides. Hi, everybody. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us today. I am going to cruise through this relatively quickly because I want to, out of respect for your time, we are on the clock. I am an engineer, as Russell mentioned, and so I'll sort of do a little bit of the bits and bytes. But since I think none of us really are fans of death by PowerPoint, I've got a couple different interfaces to show you, including some video that I have captured with our body-worn system. So we'll try and mix it up a little bit and keep things interesting. Hopefully many of you, if not all of you, are familiar with Access already, right? So you're familiar with our cameras and access control and IP audio, as well as the supporting services such as training and so forth like that. Body-worn is a new form factor for us, right? We just released our body-worn system to the public on July 15th. So it's only been public from an access standpoint for about 3 months, right? So we're happy to bring it to you today. We're going to cover again some of the nitty-gritty details, but I'm not going to kill you with a bunch of tech stuff. More than that, it'll be interesting, maybe, hopefully, that you will get an idea for what the whole system looks like, what its capabilities are, and we'll even touch on a few things that are still on the drawing board, but coming soon to a theater near you, as it were. As we're getting into body-worn, and this goes back a few years actually in researching it and deciding to step into that end of the pool, the big issues that we had seen and sort of generally seen in body-worn cameras are in front of you there. The biggest one, in my experience, having spoken to a number of law enforcement folks over the years, and that this is not just Access, but also going back to previous positions I had held, is right in the center: long-term contracts. Typically, in the landscape as it is today, before we joined, right? I'm not just buying body-worn cameras from a vendor. I'm buying the gear and then also the video storage to go along with it, right? If I'm using a Kodak body-worn camera, I am locked into having to use Kodak's cloud storage in order to save all my video and audio that I've captured, right? And so the other guys that are out there, their systems are proprietary. Their cameras won't work with other storage systems, right? And that augurs towards that other item that's on your screen, is that closed off system. If I've got a Kodak camera, I got to store it on Kodak servers and use their software to save, export, edit, and all those kinds of things, right? We are changing that, and in fact have changed that, and that's one of the big differentiators that we're going to dive into here in a minute. While we're on this slide, before we move on, the cost for that storage over the years, right? If I get into this contract for, let's say, a 3-year storage contract out at Kodak's, I keep picking on Kodak because they don't make these, by the way. If I'm locked into their storage facility, the more video and audio that I have out there, the more it's costing me for them to maintain it. And of course, storage never gets ever gets smaller. It always gets bigger, right? And the risk I run is, after that contract, if I say, you know what, I'm out of this, I lose all of that footage that I've captured, which could be a problem depending on my retention policy, right? Remember, a lot of this stuff, as I'm sure we're all sort of thinking about, is based on law enforcement and gathering evidence, which we're going to highlight in a minute. And so what happens if after 3 years I need to maintain that evidence and I want to get out of that contract, but I can't? Money, and on like that. So that's sort of the playing field as we jumped into it. And here we're about to hear how we've changed some of those things. But as we're going through the system, keep in mind that at its very core, all we're doing, the only thing we're doing here, guys, is we're capturing evidence. That's all I want to do. The rest of this is techie and features and benefits and all that kind of stuff. But at its very heart, all I want to do is capture evidence for a particular incident when it happens, right? Now, one of the side benefits here, of course, is if I'm wearing a body-worn camera, its presence itself acts as a deterrent, right? Just like when we put fixed infrastructure surveillance cameras up. If I put a big bullet camera right over the lobby door, or if I put a public view monitor as I'm walking into Walmart, right? And if anybody's ever, you walk through the front doors of Walmart and you see a big public view monitor, and there I am on the screen, that's a deterrent. Well, body-worn cameras, no different, right? People behave differently when there's a camera in the room. I'm sure you can think of a birthday party that you've been at and everybody's singing happy birthday, and then as soon as the video camera comes out, everybody changes a little bit. And the same is true for body-worn. Of course, we're also going to talk about a couple different verticals, perhaps, other than law enforcement, and that's what this documentation bullet is talking about. Let's not just think about body-worn in terms of law enforcement and first responders, but also maybe some other uses, and we'll explore that in a minute or two. Other benefits that we've got here: quicker resolutions, training opportunities. That's another one of those verticals that we might find usefulness in body-worn. And some other things here: better transparency. That's a big word that I hear a lot from the law enforcement guys, especially right now, where the city council, the county council, what have you, they want to make sure that all of the officers in their police department, sheriff's department, and on down the line are able to provide transparency to, in a climate such as ours today, right, with all the protests and the other things that are going on. Certainly there are many bystanders who will whip out their iPhone and document things, but wouldn't it be nice from a county council standpoint, right, that we could have each of our officers documenting what happened, when it happened, and that kind of thing, and that augurs towards transparency. Okay, so again, I'm flying here, so we'll just keep right on moving. This is a picture of the camera itself and a few of the features of it. Russ, I shook up the order of the slides here, so it just made a little bit better sense to me. So hopefully I didn't trip anything up. The camera itself, guys, I've got one in my hands. I don't want to put it on the video feed for risk of bandwidth issues, like one of you guys was talking about earlier. So we'll just use the picture for now. In my hand, it's about the size of a deck of cards, more or less, right? It's a little bit heavier than that, but nonetheless, physically, that's the size of it. With our body-worn cameras, the administrator, before it leaves the squad room, before it leaves the docking station, you can configure it to either record at 720p or 1080p. Okay, the implications of which are actually down in this bottom bullet point at the bottom. If I'm recording at 720p, I've got enough power and storage on board the camera itself to record for 17 hours. And in fact, in many of our tests, I can record for 17 plus. Right? If I'm recording at 1080p, as it says down there at the bottom, once again, I can get up to 12 hours. Now, for us, the thinking was, and the reason that we built enough power, the battery size and the power and the storage size and all that kind of stuff, we're aiming at being able to record for a full shift. Officer comes out of the squad room, starts his or her shift, and if they want to, they can record for a full 12 hours. And keep all that footage locally on the SD card that's built into this thing. They'll have enough battery, they'll have enough storage to record for that full shift, or 17 hours if they're recording at 720p. Okay. Note, excuse me, I'm sort of jumping around here. We do have dual microphones on this camera, so we are recording audio and video. If you want to turn audio off, you can absolutely do that. You can disable it. Or if you want to give the officer the ability to mute the microphone, you can give the officer that too. We're going to look at that more in just a quick second, but let's highlight it here while we're here. Lower on the list here is the 64 gigabyte SD card. That's the storage card. I'm rather confident that everybody knows what an SD card is, right? That's a solid state storage. It's inside the unit, and that's what we're recording all this audio and video to. Now, it's sized at 64 gig for the very purpose of being able to record a full shift. Now, one thing that I want to highlight here from a security standpoint, it's not a slot in the bottom of the unit where I can insert and or remove an SD card. It's built inside, right? So this thing is sealed. The camera itself is mil-spec 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a whole bunch of neat acronyms and all that kind of stuff, but it's built to be rugged. As a result, again, that SD card is inside and it's staying there and it's not going anywhere. Another implication of that, of course, is remember, we're gathering evidence, right? And so wouldn't it be awful, especially from a law enforcement standpoint, if that SD card ever was removed from the camera, right? And suddenly it gets in the hands of the bad guys, and now we have law enforcement footage showing up on YouTube and Vimeo and Facebook and all that kind of stuff, which of course would be a disaster. Lastly, since we're gathering evidence, we want to make sure that we maintain the integrity of that video and audio footage that we've captured. Again, from a law enforcement standpoint, we want to make sure that once it gets all the way back to the station house and then gets offloaded onto our content destination, which is, could be a VMS, could be a records management system, could be an evidence management system, and so on and so forth. And finally, to the state's attorney or the prosecutor, right? And they want to use it in court. we got to make sure that evidence stands up. We don't want a clever defense attorney to say, hey, you know, what did you record at, and were any pixels changed, and did anybody do some editing and all that kind of stuff, and suddenly evidence gets thrown out. So bringing this full circle, that SD card is inside the camera. It's encrypted on the camera. And in fact, once we get back to the station house, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, it'll be encrypted as it gets offloaded, right? So last bit on this slide before we move on, 140-degree wide horizontal field of view, just for those that are curious about that kind of thing, okay? I'm going to press on, and Russell, if there happen to be any pertinent questions in the Q&A, then by all means, feel free to interrupt, or if you want to save them to the end, we can do that too. You be the judge. Because I got the slide, Dave. Yeah, I got the slideshow on my screen and I can't see them, and I don't want to pause.
No problem. We'll take them at the end of the presentation.
Sounds good. All right, guys, this is what is involved in the whole system, right? So the camera, of course, is still sort of not real front and center, but, or well, not front and center, but front to the right. There are some other bits and pieces involved, right? So in the center is what we call the system control unit, and this is really the brains of the outfit. It's that sort of boxy looking thing right in the middle. That is the only device that actually gets connected into the house network, right? So there's one Ethernet port on the back of that guy. It gets plugged into the switch and ultimately is connected to this back-end storage system where we're going to offload all of our video. On the front of that system control unit, I'm going to plug in these docking stations. They're on the left side of your screen. We have a 1-bay docking station and an 8-bay docking station. So typically, or at least in an ideal world, right, this system control unit that's in the center, that will be back in a wiring closet somewhere, right, locked away nice and safe with the rest of the servers and whatnot. The docking stations, of course, would be in the break room, in the squad room, in the whatever room where people are going to be filing in and filing out and alternately dropping off and picking up their cameras. The docking stations themselves, as soon as I drop my camera into it, we start to charge the battery. At the same time, the system control unit says, hey, look at that. Somebody just put a camera down. I'm going to start offloading any footage that's still on there, right? That's audio and video both. And that happens automatically. No human intervention. No administrator has to push a button and say offload or any of that stuff. It happens automatically without anybody having to do anything. The other thing, or the third thing I should say, right? Charging battery, offloading video and audio. The third thing that's going to happen is that system control unit is going to check the firmware level of that camera. The implication of that is this: if while that camera was out on somebody's shift, the administrator had downloaded the latest version of firmware, then camera comes back, SCU, the system control unit, is automatically going to say, hey, I've got some new firmware for you, and pushes it out to the camera. Once again, no human intervention involved once that firmware, that updated firmware has been downloaded. All right, so 3 functions all happening just by virtue of me dropping that camera back in the docking station. To try and anticipate some of the questions that I've heard, common questions about this, from if I bring my camera back in, my body-worn camera back in, and it is fully discharged, I have used up the whole battery. At room temperature, it'll probably take about 75 minutes to maybe 90 minutes to go to a full charge. So it's fully discharged to full charge at about room temperature. Of course, if I'm not fully discharged, it will recharge itself faster than that, right? But I would expect, or we can all expect, I should say, that the batteries are going to behave much like our cell phones do, right? So if I plug it in within an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, it'll be back to 100% juice. Okay. So again, these docking stations on the left, they plug directly into my system control unit. The system control unit is on the network. That's the flow, the sort of the order of operations, if you will. One last thing while we're on this slide is the bullet camera that's top center. We do offer that as an accessory. So you have your body-worn camera. If I choose to add the bullet cam, I can do that. A couple very quick notes about that. The bullet sensor plugs directly into the camera unit. There's a little adapter, and you plug it in much like you would plug in headphones into your old iPod, if any of you guys remember those, right? If I've got the bullet sensor plugged into the camera, the only view I'm getting is through the bullet sensor. I'm not getting both. and this could very well be important to any of your customers you end up talking to about this. There's a couple of reasons for that. Mostly it's capacity, right? If I'm going to start capturing 2 streams on the same unit, then it stands to reason I'm going to need a bigger storage card. And I'm also going to need a more powerful processor because I'm now encoding 2 streams instead of 1, which in turn is going to draw more power. So I need a bigger battery, which is going to be heavier and hotter for an officer to wear. You see how sort of all the dominoes are falling here. So ultimately, that was a very specific decision that was made. We said, okay, if I have a bullet sensor, it's one or the other, but not both, because ultimately, the more stuff we try to do with this thing, now it's heavier and hotter, and pretty soon we have cops running around with something the size of a car battery, and nobody wants to do that, right? So bullet sensor is an accessory, plugs right into the main unit, and if I've got my bullet sensor plugged in, then I'm only getting that stream and not both. As you might well imagine, again, from my conversations with law enforcement, the bullet sensors are typically for the special operations guys, like SWAT teams, right? You can attach it to your helmet, you can attach it to your rifle, those kinds of things. That's where that typically comes into play. Okay, I'm going to quickly hop out and bring up a different screen for you. Hopefully, Russell, are you seeing mostly black screen with an Axis logo top left corner?
Yep.
Okay, good. Guys, what I brought up is I browsed into that system control unit, that brain box that we looked at a minute ago, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. Don't worry, we're not going to configure this thing and get into geek stuff that I'm normally involved with. I actually like to use this to sort of show flow of operations and also some of the features. So right from the get-go, here's our splash page of, again, that brain box. I got all green lights. Everything says okay. I'm feeling pretty happy. Note in the top right corner, I'm connected to Axis Camera Station as my content destination, right? That's where all my video and audio is going to be offloaded to. And again, we're going to discuss this more because this is a bit of a paradigm change within the body-worn camera a vertical or a product line, if you will, right? It could be others, and again, we'll cover that in a minute. Ultimately, as I click down the menu options on the left-hand side, you'll see that I've got one body-worn camera. I happen to name mine BWC01. It's assigned to a Mid-Atlantic detective. That's me. That's my name for myself, even though I've never been law enforcement. And you notice the status, it says undocked. That's because I pulled my camera out of the docking station, right? I've got it sitting on my desk. If it was in the dock, it would show docked. As I add more cameras, of course, that list gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Everything is hunky-dory. Below it, system controllers. Note that controllers is plural. I don't have to have just one controller in my system. In fact, one controller can manage 40, that's 40 body-worn cameras. As soon as I get to my 41st camera, I'm going to need a second system controller. That's just a capacity thing. But still, one controller for 40 cameras is not so bad. And ultimately, the cost per camera goes down the more I get them. Right? If I have one camera, I need a system control unit. If I have 40 cameras, still I just need the one system control unit. All right. So let's get away from all that boring stuff, and I want to look at our camera profiles, which is an administrative function, but it points out some of the benefits and the features and things that might be interesting to your customers. There are some lights and buzzers and things on the body-worn camera itself. The main button, which we saw in the pictures, that big square that's right on the face of it, I can configure whether or not record is one punch of the button or a double punch of the button. Little things like that. The front recording indicator thing is interesting. There's a little red light right by the sensor itself. I can have it come on and stay steady on, or I can get it to flash while it's recording, or I could have it not come on at all. My choice. Again, some of the common things that chiefs and deputy chiefs and sheriffs have asked about. Another part is this vibration, right? I can beep and vibrate. When I hit record, it'll give me a beep and it'll vibrate, right? Or I can make it beep only. I can make it vibrate only. Again, all these things configurable. Down here is where I would, on the lower left quadrant there, is where I would put it into, allow the officer to put it into silent mode if I want to give him or her that capability. Right? In other words, mute the microphone. If I don't want them to have that capability, right, I can uncheck that and they will not be allowed to mute the microphone. Again, transparency, we want to make sure that we're recording everything based on our security policy. Let me hop over here to the right half of the screen. Again, we have our choice of resolutions. I mentioned that. Here, if I just want to turn off audio entirely, I can do it. So now I'm only recording video, no noise, no sound, no conversation, no words, which again, depending on my security policy at the station, right, whoever writes those things may be important. This pre-buffer, I've got 3 things to select here. Pre-buffer is an interesting feature. Let's pretend that Russell is an officer and he's riding in a squad car and the radio crackles and there's an incident downtown and he's got to go respond to it. He rolls up on scene and there's a crowd out in the street and they're, whipping Molotov cocktails or there's a traffic accident or whatever's going on. The very first thing that Russell's going to do is not, oh yeah, I've got to hit the button and start recording on my body-worn camera. No, the first thing he's going to do is, of course, ensure his own safety, assess the situation, make sure his partner is safe as well, maybe get on the radio and call for backup, all the things that law enforcement is supposed to do to, in the interest of self-preservation. So by the time he gets out of his squad car and he's got things settled down, now he remembers to hit the button and start recording. Well, what this pre-buffer selection does on our screen here is I can set the amount of time that we will preserve footage before he hit the button. So if I've got this thing set to 90 seconds, that means I'm going to keep that 90 seconds of activity before he actually hit the button and preserve that audio and video. It's a safety feature. The pre-buffer thing is really a safety feature. Again, first things first, am I safe? Is my partner safe? And all that kind of stuff. And then by the time I hit that button, I can still keep everything that happened in the preceding 90 seconds and didn't have to force my officer to hit his or her button, right? Neat little safety feature, which I think is neat. And in fact, the LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department, the chief information officer is a really big fan. She loves that feature and pointed it out specifically, okay? Okay, so those are some of the quick features that I think are worth pointing out. So we'll hop away from that. And instead, let's hop over to some actual footage, right? Let's get away from just talking about stuff. Let's see what this thing can actually do. So let me double click my video and bring it up. So that is, Mike, as promised, that is downtown Chestertown. This is the little village where I live, guys, out here in Maryland. So I'm just walking downtown, crossing the main cross streets. Now, let me pause this real quick, and hopefully we'll be able to see it. I just obfuscated it, but it'll come back in a second. Lower right corner, you're going to see a date and timestamp. There it is, date and timestamp, and a MAC address. That's a burned-in address on the camera itself. Again, we're gathering evidence, right? So now we know, based on the footage that we're looking at here, when it happened and with what device it happened. And in fact, something I didn't mention a minute ago in our system control unit screen, the cameras will not work. They will not operate until they are assigned to a person, right? So we delineate between devices and people. So by virtue of that, we know that this camera was assigned to this officer on this date at this time with this MAC address, right? Chain of custody kind of stuff. So we know exactly who used this camera and captured this footage when it happened, right? So we'll just keep walking here. Also note, just by the timestamp, this is just before noon, right? And so if there are any photographers out there, you know that noon is when the sun is highest in the sky and it's the worst light of the day. Yet we're still getting a very usable picture here. You can see the color fidelity. You can see, we're not getting washed out by too bright and all that kind of stuff. Now, I do want to pause this for a quick second and talk about optics in just a few more steps here, where I'm walking into what we call Fountain Park. It's the town square in our little place out here. But as soon as I can, all right, let me pause it right there for a second. Another very specific and purposeful decision that we made in building our body-worn cameras. If you're familiar with our fixed infrastructure stuff and all the optics and the techniques that we have that we can get really, really good colors in low light, called Light Finder, or if it's a really highly backlit scene like a glass lobby, or if the camera's inside a parking garage and we're pointing towards the entrance where there's a lot of sunlight coming in, wide dynamic range, right? We could do all those things, and certainly we could have, if we wanted to, put it into the body worns. But we chose not to. We actually have sort of light versions of those two technologies in this thing, and here's why. We don't want the camera to be able to have all these super duper techniques and ways of seeing things that the human eye can't see. So for example, if we put infrared illuminators on this thing and put a cut filter on it so that the body worn camera could see in infrared in very low light, well, that's not fair because an officer can't see that, right? And so we don't want the camera to pick up stuff and have all these super optics that the human eyeball can't manage. Ultimately, then the officer, right, could get put in a bit of a jackpot. Say, you know, it's clear from the camera footage that the bad guy wasn't actually carrying a gun. Well, you know, we just don't want to put people in trouble like that. So the optics on this camera, the sensor, and all that stuff were built very specifically to mimic as closely as possible the human eye, right? So just be aware of that. And that's something that, once again, in my conversations with law enforcement, they've been very happy to hear that makes sense, right? Because again, they don't want to get in trouble. I also want you to notice in the background here, just as we're sort of finishing up this clip, you can see at the far end of the park, there's a couple of people walking a dog, right? And we're going to talk about Backend Systems here in a minute, but just make note of that. If I'm bringing footage to the courtroom, perhaps I want to obfuscate those people, put some sort of privacy masking around them, edit them out so I can't see license plate numbers, I can't see faces, I can't identify. People have nothing to do with the incident in my video footage. We're going to circle back around on that in a second when we talk about Backend Systems. So, okay, so that's what it looks like in the daytime. Now, let's be fair. And here we are in the coronavirus era. I recruited, since we're stuck at home, I recruited my daughter to pretend that she is breaking into a house, and I'm playing the role of cop just to give you a look at what it looks like in the dark. So walking around the backyard of my house with my flashlight, this is what you can expect to see at night. Again, you can see it's, what is it, creeping up on 8:30 on April 17th. And so she actually decides to run, and I bring her down, and I do my best Lenny Briscoe impersonation from Law and Order. I even brought my blue strobe out. All right, I'm going to mute that. All right, I'll mute the audio, but nonetheless, this is what you can expect to see. Again, if we're going to do it in the middle of the day, let's do it at night as well. Hopefully, I'm hoping that that the audio is coming through okay. Give you a sense of what it sounds like as well. Okay.
Yeah, you're all good, Dave.
Good. In fact, I even sat her in the back seat of the car and called her a punk, like I'm Clint Eastwood or something. Right. We're all stuck at in our home office prison cells, and so we were just having a little fun that night. All right, so let's hop back out of there, and we will dive into the remaining bit of PowerPoints and roll along. Okay, here's where we're going to talk about some of the back-end systems, guys, and this is again a big paradigm change in the body-worn system, body-worn market. Software versatility, storage flexibility, right? Our body-worn system, remember at the outset, we talked about these storage contracts, these long-term contracts. They just balloon and get more and more expensive because XYZ camera is only working with XYZ cloud storage service. Ours breaks that mold. Right now, in fact, beginning in July 15th, so right out of the box, the day we release to the public, our body-worn cameras will work with Axis Camera Station, of course, that's our own VMS. It'll work with Genetec Security Center. It will work with Milestone X-Protect, right? So those three, that's not just coming soon. That's not, yeah, we're getting there. Those work today in practice. So that's not vaporware, that's the real thing, right? There are more that I've heard about on the drawing board, right? All we have to do is get the software companies to write their hooks into our system. And so we should have more of the popular VMSs, names that you all recognize, coming soon. I'm going to keep those names to myself because I don't want to make any false promises or give you timelines that I'm not 100% certain on. And, you know, I don't want to talk about it until it actually exists. But Camera Station, Security Center, and XProtect, those exist. They've been written. In fact, if you're curious, you can go out to YouTube and say, you know, access body worn milestone. And there's videos out there that show you how to do it and how it looks. So that breaks that whole long-term contract nonsense, right? It breaks the expense of a long-term contract and continuing expense for storage. But here's another thing that it does. And this is why I set you up with the two people walking their dog in the park. If I've got a staff of people that are already using for my fixed cameras, right, for around the barracks and safe cities and all that stuff, if I've got a team of people who are already using my VMS software, they already ostensibly know how to take a clip, identify it, export it, save it, and then hand it to the state's attorney, right? They've already learned how to use the software. Well, they can continue using that same software, even though the department, the agency, the whatever it is, has added body-worn cameras. I don't have to pluck these people out of their regular jobs, send them off to training for a week, lose all that opportunity cost, have them learn a second piece of software if they have the capacity, and now they come back and they've got to learn two pieces of software and keep up to speed and make sure it's patched and all that nonsense. I've eliminated all that completely, right? So the implications of that are enormous, right? Because I don't have to retrain people or add a whole new staff just to do video editing or redaction or exporting and all that kind of stuff to maintain my operations. Just keep going as you would. And in fact, what happens when you do the integration of our body-worn system with Camera Station or Security Center or XProtect, the camera itself shows up as just another camera in the tree, in the directory. If I've got, you know, northwest corner, southwest corner, parking lot camera, body-worn officer 1. It just shows up as another gizmo in my directory, right? And so it's all very fluent to the people who are already using it, right? As Russ mentioned at the beginning, if I'm interested in buying this stuff, I don't have to have a relationship with a new vendor, learn their software, meet all their people. I can go right to ADI and start buying it, just like I would my access cameras and anything else that I'm getting through ADI, right? So that distribution channel, right, that sales channel is still in place. I don't have more people to know, other phone numbers to call, and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's just another device in our portfolio. The open platform bullet here speaks again to the integration piece, right? Milestone has done it, Genetec has done it. They're very good friends of ours, business partners of ours, and so that's where we started, but others are coming. And in fact, we have talked about internally, right? Not only video management systems, but records management systems, evidence management systems. And those all sound like made up words, but they're actually not, right? Certainly in law enforcement, an evidence management system is something that's very, very common. Fits all verticals, well, these last three we're gonna cover actually in the ensuing slide. So let's just sort of use that as a tickler. Fits all verticals, highly scalable, and cyber secure. Wow, I didn't know it populated like this. This is pretty neat. Okay. Of course, I think it's safe to say we all think body-worn camera, cops, right? And that makes sense. Of course we are. Or we could extend it a little bit and talk about you know, security teams, private security. Let's say the mall cops, for example. One very real example I have is the security team at a distribution center. Large clearinghouse. It's not Amazon, but think in terms of a distribution center like Amazon, where they have problems with shrink, right? The people who are out there picking things. If I've got an internal security team because I think Russ is stealing iPhones out of the bin, then I might equip my internal security team with a body-worn camera the same way that, you know, public law enforcement might do. Okay, that's very good. But other verticals that we might think of, and you guys might think of when you're talking to your partners and customers. Another example that I have is healthcare. A few different examples that we've thought of in that realm. Already there's electronic medical records. The big software out there, maybe you guys have heard of, is Epic, right? I don't have a paper chart anymore at my doctor's office. I have an electronic chart, electronic medical records. In hospitals right now, especially in the COVID era, right? they're putting more and more cameras in patient rooms because they don't want to go walking into a patient room if they are positive for COVID. We're seeing a lot of that just in our business for fixed infrastructure. Well, what if I wanted my nursing staff, my physician's assistants, medical assistants, or the doctors themselves, right? Why don't maybe they could be wearing a body-worn camera when every time they go into a patient room, they're going to administer some sort of medication on a schedule. Did such and such a person administer the right medication at the proper dose, at the right time, on the right day? Now, look, I'm just spitballing here. That might be a giant HIPAA violation for all I know, but is it a possible use for body-worn cameras in healthcare? I don't know. It might be worth exploring. And then I go back and I drop my body-worn camera back into the docking station, and my back-end content destination is Epic, because I know I'm putting fixed camera views into Epic today. Maybe body-worn could be integrated into the Epic system, and now that dosage on a certain day at a certain time is part of a video evidence record that this patient got, and it goes right into his or her chart. Once again, guys, I'm spitballing here, but let's sort of broaden our minds a little bit and think outside the box, and who knows exactly what our customer base might end up being for body-worn cameras. A few of these I think are also pretty obvious, right? Stadiums and venues, casinos, public transport, right? Bus driver wears a body-worn camera. Whether it's a school bus driver or a city bus driver, maybe he or she has a reason to, again, I'm quite certain there are many security incidents. Did driver A drop off the proper kid at the right house on that day, right? Because we can save ourselves an Amber Alert, or who knows, right? Once again, I'm spitballing. But nonetheless, one last thing that has been brought up in conversation too is also sort of regulatory agencies, right? Inspectors. Let's say it's my job to go out to a Department of Energy, a nuclear facility, or if I'm going up to the Conowingo Dam, which is up here at the top of the Susquehanna River, right? And it's a hydroelectric facility, and it's my job to inspect the hydroelectric generator motor, fan belt, cam shafts, whatever. Well, as I'm doing my inspection that I'm supposed to do once a week or once a month or whatever, I can wear my body-worn camera and document the fact that I did the inspection. Maybe it's as simple as for meter readers. I don't even know if we have meter readers anymore. Mike, you had a gas leak this morning. Maybe you could, if guys are coming around to check the meter, and like they used to, at least in the old days, now I can document the fact that I did my meter reading at the right time. Anyway, I won't belabor this any longer, but you get the idea. It's not just necessarily for cops, right? There are a few things that I want to mention before we start to wrap this up. There are some devices and some features inside the camera which we are laying the groundwork for future capabilities. So let me make certain that everybody that's seeing this is future stuff that's not ready necessarily yet today. On board the body-worn camera, our body-worn camera is a GPS receiver, right? So we can start to collect location data. There is actually one case where this is already being used, and that's with our integration into Genetec. Essentially, when I hit the button to record, the camera records latitude and longitude, makes it part of the metadata of the video stream. When I hit the button a second time to stop recording, it records lat and longe again. That can be, that bit of information can be used by the backend system. And in this case, Security Center does have a way to map latitude and longitude into its system. Down the road, I imagine there'll be more capabilities to use with that, but for the moment, let's just sort of tuck that away as coming soon. Same thing is true for the Bluetooth Low Energy radio inside of it, right? This would be used ostensibly someday in the future for automatic recording. If I am driving in my police cruiser and I hit, I've got my Whelen lights and sirens console in the center there, and I hit lights and sirens, and because I'm going to take off after something, that would emit a signal that would automatically cause my camera to begin recording. Again, future, coming soon. And again, I haven't seen details on this, and so I can make no promises about exactly what these things will look like and when they're coming. Third one down is a Wi-Fi radio. This one is sooner on the drawing board, and in fact, I have heard some rumblings that this is going to be activated before the end of 2020. I will be able to associate my smartphone directly to my body-worn camera and see a view of it. What that allows me to do is make sure I have it positioned properly on my body. I'm getting the field of view that I'm expecting to do. I am also using an app on my smartphone and associated wirelessly to my body-worn camera. I'll be able to make case notes and things like that. If I've got footage, I can perhaps go back in and view it, and I can put case number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and put things like, took down perp on the corner of Main and Elm, and who knows? Again, I haven't seen it, but internally we're talking about turning on that capability before the end of the year. Now, note, by the way, from the security of the system, even when that feature is released, I won't be able to delete any video. I won't be able to edit any video. That's not what we're doing here, right? We're capturing evidence and we're maintaining the integrity of that evidence. So once that audio video is captured, can't delete it, right? Last bit is a gyroscope and accelerometer, and this is once again ostensibly going to be for some man-down applications, right? Officer has gone has gone horizontal, and isn't moving. Then we'll be able to start recording automatically, and hopefully some other things too. We'll see. But again, this is all drawing board stuff. The last bit here that I want to say about this back-end system, we've already beat it to death, but I'm going to beat it some more. Because it is such a game changer. Back-end systems, right? So I'm already an Access Camera Station user for my fixed infrastructure, or a Genetec user for fixed or Milestone. I can plug this system in and just keep on cruising. I will have to buy some camera connection licenses, right? Just like we do for fixed infrastructure cameras. If I've got 5 body-worn cameras coming into my system, I'm going to need 5 camera connection licenses. Makes sense, but same software, same system. I've already got one. Why don't I just add more cams to it? Of course, there may be some considerations since I'm going to be preserving more and more footage. Maybe on my VMS server, I need to get some more disk, right? But I can buy terabytes worth of disk for what? Just a few $100s. And it's not one of these ballooning contracts that just grows and grows and grows. So can't stress that enough about this back-end system thing. As I mentioned earlier, one system control unit can manage up to 40 body-worn cameras. When I do have multiple system control units in my enterprise, they will be made aware of one another, so that if I'm moving between barracks or between offices, so long as those system control units are networked together, I don't have to go all the way back to my home barracks to recharge my battery and offload my video. I can put it anywhere in the system, right? We have a pilot right now. Actually, I think it's in production right now. I believe it was in Germany, where they had them in 5 different cities across the country, and because they're all on the same network, they're aware of one another. And so if Officer A goes to a visiting office somewhere else, and somewhere other than his home barracks, then he can just drop his camera and operate as usual, right? And again, highlighting the content destination piece. So. Winding up here, guys, the big differentiators as far as we're concerned. We've talked about the open platform piece, right? Other software companies can write into our system, and we love being flexible with their back-end stuff. Cybersecurity, we touched on a little bit. Again, when I capture that footage and it goes onto the SD card, it's encrypted. When I drop the camera into the docking station and the system control unit starts offloading all that footage, in transit, it's encrypted. When the system control unit turns around and pushes that footage to my back-end system, it's encrypted again. So it's encrypted in transit and also while it's being stored on the camera. Once again, chain of custody, evidence. We want to make sure that there's just no question brought into what we've got here. The very top bullet on this screen, 3-year warranty. Now, that shouldn't come as a surprise, right? From Access, all of our stuff is 3-year warranty. In fact, we just upped that to a 5-year warranty on many of our devices. Unfortunately, not body worn, but where that is sort of an eyebrow raiser, this 3-year warranty bit, is the other guys, our competition, 1 year, 1. So look, again, I'm not law enforcement. I don't walk a beat every day, but I have had already a number of police chiefs and sheriffs and deputy sheriffs and that kind of stuff say, "Whoa, see, you're offering 3 years on your gear?" I said, "Yes, sir, we are." And that really is an eye catcher to some folks, right? All right. Here's a few accessories. We mentioned the bullet, the bullet sensor. There's a look at some of the attachments, the mounts that are available through us. Well, actually through you, right? So your customers can order MOLLE mounts and harness mounts and this and that and the other through ADI. I've got a couple of them here, but again, I don't want to take the chance of putting my camera on because otherwise, I might crush my internet connection. But just know that the mounts are there. They're part of the portfolio as well. Actually, let me back up real quick. We have a partnership with an outfit called ClickFast. That's spelled with a K, K-L-I-C-K. Now, that doesn't mean anything to me because, once again, I'm not law enforcement, but that does have some significance to the law enforcement types. You say, oh, yeah, this camera fits with the ClickFast stuff. And they say, oh, okay, well, good. That's something we already have or that's something we know about. And so, it seems like that's an easy fit, and there's some versatility there. You can mount it a bunch of different ways. Last bit here, guys, just a few sort of, I guess, really a review slide more than anything else. But there's the center of your page. There's that. There are the dimensions, right? So it weighs less than 0.4 of a pound, and height, width, and depth, right? Again, as I say, about the size of a deck of cards. This just above that, this IP67 rating. We made this thing for use out in the field. Come rain, sleet, snow, drop in a puddle, get stopped on, drop it while I'm chasing a perpetrator, rough and tumble kind of stuff. It's made to be durable. It's made to be used by an officer or a law enforcement official while they are in the field. Now, don't throw it in the deep end of the pool and leave it there for a day, right? But you want to operate in the rain and the sleet and all that kind of stuff. And again, as I say, maybe even drop it in a puddle for a little bit. Yeah, you're going to find that it's going to work out okay. So that's something to pay attention to as well. I think everything else we've pretty well covered. So I'll just sort of fly through this last bit. And Russell, I think this is where we need to bring you back in so that you can talk to us about the rest. Okay?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Great presentation. So I kind of want to go over our Access Channel Partner Program, which some of you may be aware of, others may not. We have 3 partners levels. We have authorized partner, a silver partner, and a gold partner. The silver and gold partner do have revenue requirements, whereas our authorized partners, there's no revenue commitment, no certification requirement. So again, no commitment, get your feet up off the ground. With silver, there's a $30,000 revenue commitment and have at least 1 Access certified professional on staff. With our gold partnership, it's $70,000 in revenue commitment and have 2 professional certified on staff. Now, those numbers are MSRP, and we also have programs that can fast track partners to silver or gold for 6 months with no sales requirement, just needing to have those professionals certified. So if you do want more information on that, please reach out to your local RSMs or ADI branches. We can get you the information. Also, some of the benefits of being an Access partner are more margin opportunities, dedicated account management, both inside and outside salespeople with our ICMs and our RSMs, demo products, NFRs, project pricing opportunities, access to all of our tools, system design tools, product selections tools, listing and where to buy for all of our Access partners. So again, thank you very much. And we have a couple questions in Q&A that I want to shoot over to Dave. So, and thank you, Dave. Here is our business areas. Hold on real quick, let me do something. So Access has 6 distinct business areas. We're the West, South Central, Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, and Northeast. So again, this is how Access is broken up into our sales territory. And within those, we have our RSMs and our inside sales managers, as well as key account managers. So thank you for that slide, Dave.
Yep. Here's some other resources for you. Yep. Go ahead.
Yep. Oh, so I do want to point out, we do have the Access Academy training. These used to be an in-person training, but due to situation right now with COVID, we have gone to online, and you can find those at axis.com/learning/online courses. And we'll make this presentation available. We'll send it over to Mike, and everyone on the presentation today will have access to this. And these are all hyperlinks. So if you do want to become a partner, it's very easy. Go to www.axis.com/partners/. Again, Axis website is a great website, very easy to navigate, and besides the tools, is just a great repository for information of all of our products. So with that said, we have a couple questions. The first one is the body worn camera, the W100, looks pretty rugged. Is there military specs on it? So do we have are we spec'd in with military?
It is mil spec rated. I don't have that number at my fingertips, but I can find it for us in the data sheet. And Russell, I'll get that. I'll answer that question in writing if you have the capability to publish that in an email, maybe back to Mike or something. Is that okay?
Yep, that's perfect, Dave. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next question. You mentioned attaching to a rifle, a gun, so on and so forth. Is that as simple as just, do we make those attachments, or is that something that we would need to get with certain opportunities on?
That is a really good question. I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute, and I'm going to turn on my camera. Hopefully, can everybody see?
Yep.
See my camera? Okay. Here is the bullet sensor itself, and it's got maybe hard to see, but it's got some fittings on it with a couple screws to turn, and it has in the box some other bits and pieces. Now, the reason I'm not answering you yes or no is because I don't know how to do it. I don't own a rifle, and I've never had to put one of these on a helmet before. But my point is this: it comes with some bits and pieces that looks as though it's capable of being mounted right out of the box, guys. But I would also maybe caution you that every circumstance is unique, and so I don't want to, give you any false leads.
Nope, that's great. Thank you very much, Dave, for showing those accessories. I think with the railing system there, that's what they were looking for. With the newer products that we're announcing, I take it with this progress and the progress of 5G technologies, we are taking that very important looking forward.
We're talking, I think the question is auguring towards, are we looking at live streaming? The answer is yes. We are certainly looking at it and considering it, but we're doing so very carefully. And that's for a couple of reasons that I think will make sense. We all go out day to day and we take our iPhones with us and we go to some part of the town or some part of the county where instead of getting 4 bars, we're only getting 1, or maybe we're getting none at all. Even with 5G, even with the days of 5G. Now, of course, I live out in the country, right? And so maybe I experience this more often than others. So what then happens if I'm counting on this evidentiary system, maybe even in the sense of live view, I really, really need to have good coverage for it to be functional and utile. And yet ultimately, because there is no cell phone tower nearby, end user, the officer, the whoever it is, has a bad experience. That's not something that we want to put forward and on down the line, right? Our distributors like ADI, I don't want to sell a bad device. So there's that consideration to be done. And sure, the 5G radio itself could be in my police cruiser, and that's trying to transmit back. Again, these are getting into things that are beyond my depth. The other thing that brings up, even though we are encrypting, right there on the body-worn camera, anytime, we're going to stream over public infrastructure, i.e. the internet, it's a risk. It's a risk. We can't guarantee that the footage is going to traverse the internet because it's uncontrolled space and make it all the way back to the station house or the central command or the security operations center. So we can't guarantee that. And also, could it be intercepted? In a man-in-the-middle kind of attack? Could there be some way of breaking the encryption? I mean, there's always a possibility. Nothing is entirely bulletproof, right? And so anytime we're gonna take that very precious video and audio footage and touch public infrastructure with it, we really want to give it a second or third or fourth look before we want to do that. So yes, it's being considered. but we make no promises as to when it would be happening.
Excellent. Thank you. And the last question, now we're at the top of the hour, is what approximate percentage of market share do we feel access body cams have now?
Guys, we've had our body cams out for 3 months. So my answer is going to be very, very, very little. But here we are today, all of us together. Let's change that.
Great answer. Great answer, Dave. Again, I want to thank everybody for their time today, and hopefully we answered everyone's question. If you have any more questions, please direct them to Mike and myself, and we can get those answered offline, and we'll make this presentation available. So again, everybody have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week.